All right.
All
right. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to open up the work session, Mayor and Council, 10 a.m., February the 8th, 2022, and we will get started. So, item one, the first item we have up today is under governing body. It is an amendment of the PTV, which is the golf cart ordinance. Is anybody going to present anything on this, Tom? Do we have anybody presenting anything on this? No? Okay, this item will not go on the consent agenda anyway, so we will move on to A2, discussion of Villa Rica Planning and Zoning Ordinance, P&Z terms. Mr. Carter, is this you?
Yes, it is.
Do we have an ordinance for this prepared, or is this a discussion item only?
Well, it's got to go through planning and zoning, so I think that's why it's discussion
Okay.
this time.
Is anybody, I know you talked about it at our last meeting, is anybody going to present anything on this?
I actually gave each person on the council a
Yes, sir,
copy
I
of.
see this.
Okay. It's very simple. What we didn't do in planning and zoning is we didn't specify how we would select our commissioners, and we also didn't set the terms to where we could control them, the start and stops of the terms. We just let them float. So I'm just trying to clarify that with this change.
Okay, and this is being handled by legal, right? David's working on this, and you're going to get it to P&Z first, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
David's already done it, and I think it has to go through P&Z.
All right, so we'll save this item for when we have an ordinance, which will probably be maybe in April. Wait a minute, where are we at?
It'll be in
February,
March.
So maybe March. Okay. We'll see if it's ready, because they still have to take it through planning and zoning before it can get here. All right, A3, tree and limb removal at Hillcrest. Is this you, Alyssa? All right, would you go ahead and present this for us?
Good morning, everyone. I'm here to present the bid approval for the tree and limb removal project at Hillcrest Cemetery. And I know all of you are very familiar with this, as a few of you went on a walking tour with me last week to take a look at those trees. Back October last year, I met with a local arborist who walked around and took a look at the trees out at that cemetery so I could get their expert opinion on a few of the trees that appear to be dying and in distress. The arborist did point out at least 2 trees that are dead and a number of oaks that are diseased and in danger of the heavy limbs falling onto the tombstones. So between me and a few volunteers of the Cemetery Commission, we went around and took a tour and come up with at least 46 trees out there that need to come down, that need to be removed. Now, these 46 trees are all shape, size, and species. They're not all large oaks. They're different species. Some are small, some are 100 years old. The biggest, largest oak tree we've got, we calculated at least 200 years old. And that has died. There's no lush green leaves on it anymore. The largest of the trees are all oaks, and many of these have taken root inside a grave that have damaged the grave site, the grave wall, with massive roots reaching up under the nearby graves. And I did take a few of the council members out last week to take a look at those trees. So what I decided to do is just put a bid out in January. And at the pre-bid mandatory meeting a few weeks later, there were 6 tree companies that came out for the pre-bid meeting, and they also took a tour of the cemetery to take a look at those trees. Out of the 6 companies, only 2 bids came back. One came back from Rodriguez Tree Services out of Carrollton for $300,000, and the second bid came in from Richmond Tree Experts for $78,689. One bid company forgot the date. One just couldn't get around to it. The bid company, can't remember the name, but they're out of Carrollton, decided not to bid because of the liability there. So Richmond Tree Services is out of Marietta, I believe, Marietta, Rossville.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna talk about exactly what they're gonna do, what the bid requests.
I was wondering if did you happen to include any pictures, or do you have any pictures of some of these
Yes,
trees?
I've got pictures.
Okay.
Do you want me to show them?
If you could, I think it would be helpful to be able to see some of these pictures. I don't know if everybody had a chance to go out and walk with you or not, but I did,
I did.
and Ms. McCoy did. I want people to be able to see some examples of what we're looking at and what is happening to the existing structures there in terms of the headstones, the enclosings of some of these, and how far out these limbs reach.
I also was out there Friday, which was after we had those storms, and there were a lot of limbs and stuff that there were a lot of limbs and stuff down that people have to pick up, and removing the trees would prevent a lot of that, and in addition to the damage.
So that's a very good example. We've got many like that have taken root inside the grave. A lot of oak trees, come up on their own. So that's what we're thinking, because I don't think families would have planted an oak tree inside the grave. Now, they could have been planted out there in the old section because the Chambers family actually owned all that land past Powell Park. That's where their home was. They had a log cabin right around where Powell Park was, and they could have planted some of them, but you can see the damage continues, and it's going to continue. And it's critical, really, at this point to get these trees down, because once the heavy limbs fall, they're going to damage the tombstones.
Right. Okay. Does any council members have any questions for Alyssa? Okay. So let me say that I went out there. I understand now Ms. McCoy's gone out there as well. The city has liability in this cemetery in terms of these structures, these enclosures, and these headstones. Therefore, it does seem to me to be prudent to go ahead and get this stuff removed before it becomes much worse than it already is. Some of these monuments have already been toppled over, and the city's had to repair them. So if there are no further questions and no objections, I want to make this consent item number 1.
I also want to announce, too, that, we're depending on the Garden Club for part of this money, and as of yesterday, they did present me a check. That is the rest of their money because they're dissolving their club. They gave me a check for $27,285.97.
So does that mean you would pay that $27,000 toward this amount?
Yes,
in the
which
city's?
would leave $51,403.03.
I'm glad you said that.
Yes.
I didn't know that
Yes,
information.
I've been working on that money for quite a while now, and they finally presented it yesterday. That Ken is actually going to be doing an article and a press release about the Garden Club. It's very interesting because they've been around for a long time. They've been
Okay.
around since 1936, I believe, with 6 remaining members. Some of these members were not the charter members, but there's a lot of history with that club, and they've done a lot at that cemetery, and I really appreciate everything they've done. They've given me a list, and they actually adopted that cemetery years ago and have planted and bought signage and put up benches and just done a lot of things out there. So we really need to thank them for what all they've done for that cemetery.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir. Mr. Carter.
I would like to see the motion change on this one before we make it part of this
I
consent.
knew that was going to happen.
51-403.
All right, so this will not be consent item number 1. You'll need to make the change to the cover sheet,
Yeah.
and we'll take it up in the regular session. All right, let's move on to B1. CU-01-22, special exception request from Ben Amore, owner of Cloud 9 of Atlanta, Georgia, 197 Commerce Drive. This item has a public hearing. So I'm just going to ask if council has any questions for Ron, because this will not be on the consent agenda. If there are no questions, we're going to move on, because I don't have any reason to hear that right now. All right, B2, the Mill Amphitheater Painting. Nick, come on up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's kind of loud, sorry about that. this agenda item is a request to have the mill amphitheater roofs repainted, and also includes the man doors, handrails, wood fascia, downspouts, and gutters to match the newly paint job that was done on the Avanti building. We'd like to go with a black color, just like the gutters and the downspouts that are on the Avanti building. I'd like to engage with Harrison Contracting to do the work. They did a phenomenal job at our Avanti building and also our library. They've actually had this quote on the table for a few months, and even though Sherwin-Williams and PPG has increased their material prices, they are still going to honor this price. It just took us a while to get it on the agenda and prepared. So staff is recommending to engage Harrison Contracting in the amount of $17,200. This will paint the amphitheater, the concession stand, the restrooms, all the handrails, and man doors.
Okay, I have no doubt that this work needs to be done. I just only see one bid in here.
That's correct.
You touched on it just for a little bit, but how many bids did you get?
I only received one. After the job that they did at the amphitheater, or at the Avanti building, I felt like we would get the exact same quality, exact same paint, and exact same result with this company.
And how do you feel that this is a fair price if you haven't compared it to anybody else?
It was comparable to the Avanti building painting when I did get 3 bids there. Now again, Harrison wasn't the cheapest; they were the median, so they were the second lowest or highest price in those 3. And comparing to the bids that we received for the Avanti building, I kind of just didn't. I mean, I did my diligence through myself and feel like it's a good competitive price.
All right, council, do you have any questions for Nick?
Yeah.
Mr.
it's not-
Carter.
It says it's not a budgeted item. Where's the money coming from?
They're coming from tourism product development.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. I'm going to say something that I haven't really said probably since I sat in one of these other chairs, maybe 3 years ago, but I'm going to remind everyone that we do want to get multiple bids, even if you can vouch for the company. In that particular case, you might vouch for the company because they're a little higher, or, we still want to see that there are multiple bids out there. I think the public wants to see that.
Yes, sir.
However, this is not a huge expenditure. They did just do the work over at the Avanti building. I do agree with you that that probably would have been our choice anyway, but going forward, at least try to get 3 bids.
Yes,
Is there any objections to making this consent item number 1?
No.
All right. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Okay, Parks and Recreation, C1, athletic uniforms for soccer. Who's got that?
I
Ms.
do.
Tracy. Go
Good morning,
ahead.
Mayor and Council.
Morning.
Morning.
This is the annual bid process that we do to acquire prices for our athletic sports uniforms. We did do 2 invitations to bid. The first was for our soccer. And the reason we do the soccer individually is we've only found one company that can really provide us a quality uniform that looks good. We put our kids in a great looking uniform. So we did do an invitation to bid. We did have the one response, and that was for Crown Sports. So in this case, they were offering us $18.50 for spring soccer youth prices, fall soccer youth prices, as well as adults. So it's $18.50 per jersey. So I make a motion to approve Crown Sports as the vendor for our soccer uniforms.
Well, let's not get you up here too quick.
Okay.
You make a recommendation from staff,
Yes.
right? Okay. All right. Council, does anybody have any questions for Tracy?
Not on this one.
All right. If no questions, are there any objections to making this consent number 2?
None.
All right, Tracy, let's do 2. Athletic uniform, softball, baseball, and basketball.
Okay, we did the same thing again. We did an invitation to bid for athletic uniforms for those sports, as well as for football, but that's a different vendor, so I just broke them down into 2 different items. In this case, we are recommending Cedar Stream Company. They provided the best price. They've also done some work with us in the recent history, and we were very pleased with the product, the workmanship, the ability to work with them, the timely responses. So we're pleased that they did get the bid for the baseball, softball, and basketball uniforms.
Okay. Council, any questions for Tracy?
Actually, I
Mr.
should have asked
Carter.
the same question on the last one. We don't have a total amount being spent here.
Well, at the time we did this, we did not know how many kids we would have.
Do you do an estimate every year? I mean, we kind of have to have a feel for how much we're going to spend out. You don't have a clue how many?
Well, with the situation that COVID has created for us, and we gave back a lot of refunds in 19. Last year for our spring sports, we had 455 kids. This year we're over 600, so it would have been a difficult task to make that estimate.
Okay, let me ask you this. We created a budget. How much did you allow for this in the budget?
I don't have that budget amount in front of me right now, but it is a budgeted item, and we do generate a revenue for it. So we don't spend it unless we generate a revenue for it. So
And this is the per uniform,
per uniform cost,
cost.
Yeah.
right?
Which we've done before, but typically we have been able to see an estimate, but I understand that it's fluctuating a good bit right now.
It is,
And it is hard to kind
yeah.
of put that out there, but
I
it
mean,
would be helpful if
we can
had
make an
something.
estimate, you know, based, hopefully going forward, we can use our numbers for this year because it's been a very good year for us and make that estimate.
My primary concern would be to know if we're going to exceed what you budgeted in
I
the budget.
understand. Yeah.
Okay, well, you presented it as a budgeted item, so if you do find that you're gonna exceed the budget, you need to come back here. Is there any other questions?
None?
Okay. Does anybody have any objection to making this consent number 3?
No?
All right, let's move on to C3, athletic uniforms. This is for football.
This is for football. Out of the bidders that we received, we had one low bid for football uniforms. That was Gable Sporting Goods out of Douglasville. They have provided our uniforms in the past for us, and they would like to continue doing business with Gable Sporting Goods. Very good product. Our uniforms, it's really important for me, for our teams and our players to look as good as any other rec department in the region. So all three of these vendors are giving us that.
So on the, I'll wait just a minute on that, Train. Thank you, John. So on the, in the packet, you say that you have a table 2, which shows the bid, but I don't see that in here.
Lissa's going to be table 2, and Gable's.
I don't see it in mine.
It's highlighted in yellow.
Let me see if it's there. It's there. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Are there any questions for Tracy?
Yeah.
Mr. Carter?
I noticed they got a lower price for the youth price and then a higher price for the adults above the one above it, which is known sports. So it really depends on how much total you're spending on each one. It looks to me like the known sports might be the better deal.
We asked to see their quality. That's the company that provides the soccer uniforms, and for some reason they do a dynamite job on soccer, but they don't do a dynamite job on anything else. And
Just soccer.
just
huh?
soccer. I don't know if the guy is.
What happened?
I do not know. I do not know. But and then the $38 over the $34 is going to be because of adult sizing.
I understand, but there's known sports can give them both for 35. But if they don't do a good job,
They don't on this particular product.
That's interesting.
It
Thank
is.
you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Any objections to making this consent number 4?
No.
All right. Thank you, Tracy. Let's move on to utilities. Item number 1, D1, engineering services for Cowans Lake Pump Station improvements. Who's got that? Pete.
I do. Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Morning.
This first item is a request for engineering services for the Lake Cowan pump station improvement with Carter and Sloop to do the work. The existing station is situated in an area that floods quite frequently due to its close approximation to the lake. And this would provide raising the pump controls and the pump station itself approximately about 8 feet from where it is right now, building a platform to be able to access it. And in addition to that, we'll also, they'll be designing new pumps to go in that station, which will be higher horsepower And at that point in time, we'll have to go back and upgrade that electrical control panel for the new pumps when they're put in.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Pete? All right, if there are no questions, is there any objection to making it consent number 5?
None at all. I see it's a budgeted item.
All right. Pete, let's go to number 2.
Okay,
D2, completing the beam data request from Georgia. What does that say?
And I
EPF?
apologize for the acronym without spelling it out. The acronym stands for Basin Environmental Assessment Model. And this was a request from Georgia EPD that we get this work done. There's a considerable amount of engineering involved with it to be able to calculate some of the stream flows, capacities that we have at the reservoir for source water assessment. We're heavily involved with looking at our water supply, so this will be something that will actually help us going forward. But in-house, we don't have the expertise to do some of this modeling that Carter Sloop has done some of this already.
And you have this is budgeted, so.
Yes, sir.
Did you know that they were going to require this when you put the budget out?
No, I did not.
Okay. All right, are there any other questions for Pete?
Yeah, if you didn't know it was
Mr. Carter.
budgeted, how did you say it's budgeted?
Well, we have a certain amount of money in the budget for engineering and professional
Okay,
services.
it's just an engineering item.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
All right, any objection to making this consent number 6?
none.
All right, D3, engineering services for installing a flow control valve and flow meter at water plant. Pete?
Yes, sir. There's a real need at this time to have this engineering work done. Currently, when we supplement our water at the water plant, we pull water from Carroll County Water Authority through a line that's located at the water plant off of Van Wert Road. And it comes around the back of the plant and is actually directly discharges into the clear well at the plant. So basically, there's no control currently. There's just you have to put a valve key on it. You have to open this valve, but you don't know how much flow you're getting. It's pretty cumbersome. We also have some female operators. Sometimes it's an old valve that's there right now. It's awfully hard to operate. So as we've had higher demand, it's imperative that we have a little bit finer control over the amount of flow that comes into that wet well. And this will be a valve that's installed. This is just for the engineering, but it will allow for the valve to be modulated to control the valve, and also where the operators can do this remotely in the plant, and then they can see on the SCADA what effect that has on the flow coming into the plant.
Okay, are there any questions for Pete? All right, any objections to making this consent number 7?
None.
Okay, D4, Hickory Level Road Water Main Upgrade.
Yes, sir. This is also a request for engineering services for Carter and Sloop to design approximately 2,750 feet of 12-inch water main to run along Hickory Level Road. Currently, we have from the intersection of No, I just did the flow control. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're fine. Anyway, currently from the intersection at Van Wert Road and Hickory Level, we have a 12-inch there. And it goes eastwardly to Ridgeside Road, which is
Right.
about half the distance from Van Wert to Highway 61. This is kind of similar in nature to the Edge Road project that we completed, where you had a 12-inch line that ran about halfway down the road and then reduced to a 6. So this project would be to make sure that we continue that 12 through the entire length of Hickory Level Road and connects to the Hickory Level water tank.
Okay, are there any questions for Pete on this one?
None.
I have
All
a
right,
question.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Montahan.
So, this one, it references a Hickory Level to the Van Wert intersection. Is some of that in the county, though? It's not all in the city, right? Some stretch of that Hickory Level part? Right. So are we, and then also, we just approved, I think, a variance request for new development between the Home Depot and the apartments? So are we getting a contribution from either of those stakeholders for assistance on this?
No, we're not.
Okay. Have we, thought about reaching out to them?
They're redoing the lift station.
Okay. In lieu of potentially contributing here, or that's a whole separate deal?
Hadn't even come up until recently.
Okay. I just think, if we're working with other stakeholders, then maybe we at least have a conversation with them on how they can assist. Because especially when you got somebody about to come in and build a new development, that one developer. I know that was a variance request, it wasn't a rezoning, so it wasn't something that we didn't already have on our plate, but I just think, if we had a conversation with them, it would help us a little bit too,
Yes, sir.
going forward. That's all. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, is there any objection to making this consent number 8?
None.
All right, D5, West Plant Influent Station Bar Screen Structure. Who's that? John, come on up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This request is the first of 2 requests for screening structures, this being a request to engage with Huber Technology for a coarse bar screen at the West Plant Influent Pump Station. That pump station currently does about 1 million gallons of untreated wastewater a day. There's no screening structure in place at the moment. So that station gets inundated oftentimes with a lot of large debris, raised construction debris, etc., in that station, causing problems to the pumps and potential overflows. So this request is to remedy that by purchasing a new coarse bar screen for that station. There are 2 types of bar screens available. There's a front rake and what's called a rear rake screen. They're significantly different in life cycle costs. There are limited manufacturers for both types of those screening structures, so we reached out for quotes on both, with the significant difference being the replacement and repair and maintenance costs of the rear rake relative to the front rake. The initial cost of the front rake is $230,000, where the rear rake structure came in at $107,000. However, the life cycle cost was significantly different. There's some added detail, I believe, in your council packets from our engineer relative to this, Simonton Engineering, relative to the difference in the operational costs. So we looked at a long-term solution for this, as we believe this, particularly the Huber one that we're recommending, has a minimum 25-year and up to 30-year or more life cycle. So relative to the other one that has a 15 to 20-year life cycle. So given the long-term cost and the 2 quotes we received, Huber Technology came in with the low bid at in life cycle at $230,000. So staff recommends engaging with Huber Technology for the purchase of a front rake screen at $230,000. I do want to make clear this is for the structure itself and not for the installation cost, with the idea being this is a 6-month plus time frame to get this delivered. So the idea here is to get this process started and while reaching out to contractors for a cost on installation.
I have to tell you, I really like this idea of looking at the long-term cost of it, but that just seems so extraordinarily different. But I'm not an expert in this, and I'm not going to substitute my judgment. I just think it's interesting that that lifetime cost is so different. It's almost like they planned for it.
Well, I think the essential difference there is the rear rake screen will need to be replaced. It has a much shorter life cycle. So
Yeah.
you're looking at a full replacement after, say, 15 years to 20 years,
Right.
where the front screen lasts typically 25 to 30 years plus.
And so you believe, and the experts believe that spending the initial money up front is better than the lower cost up front over the long-term cost.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Counsel, do you have any questions?
Yeah,
Mr. Carter?
the 230 covers, what, that one item?
Yes. It's a coarse bar screen for the influent pump station, but it's the item itself. It's not the installation cost.
And yet we don't have a clue yet as to what it's gonna cost to install it and maintain it.
I don't have that number. No, sir.
But the 230 is budgeted item, or no, it's a loan?
Yeah, it'd be part of the GFA loan number 2. We do have the maintenance cost, excuse me, what we don't have is the installation cost.
Okay.
Mr.
Is
Carter,
there, what is the order time on this?
6 to 8 months.
6 to 8 months?
Mhm.
Okay.
This is a portion of the overall redoing, putting in the bar screen and at the influence structure. And part of the GFA loan, we're anticipating the total cost of that, which this equipment is part of that. It will come in somewhere in the neighborhood of $990,000 to get that whole installation done. So we're just trying to secure the equipment right now due to the lead time, similar to what we did at the North Plant with the belt press, because the lead times are just so long.
So, are you saying that the installation of this would coincide with the installation of other pieces? We're
That's-
trying to get this item ordered in, but you can't give us an estimate on the installation cost for this item alone because it's going to be part of a package.
That's correct.
Okay.
There'll have to be an influent channel, and it'll have to be incorporated with the channel. There's other components to it.
Have we
Alright.
got the other pieces ordered already? You said
No,
it's part of a
this-
package.
Well, I mean, as far as building an influent, that would be excavating, pouring concrete, that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
This is trying to get from the supplier.
Okay, the rest of it's more or less installation
Yes,
costs.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? All right. Any objections to making this consent number 9?
None?
Okay, let's go on to D6, West Plant new parks and drum screen installation. John?
Yes, sir. This is a fine rotary screen to be installed at the headworks of the West Treatment Facility. So essentially it'd be downstream from the core screen, bar screen we just talked about. So the purpose of this quote is to engage with J.S. Heron Company for the purchase and installation of that parks and drum screen. We currently have 2 parks and drum screens at the headworks at the moment. With the additional flows, both from redirect as well as future plans, it's recommended that we purchase and install a 3rd rotary drum screen. We did reach out to 4 companies for that and received 4 bids, with J.S. Heron being the apparent low bidder at the cost of $305,000. So I move we engage with J.S. Heron Company for the purchase and installation of the West Plant rotary screen at the cost of $305,000, and this would also be part of GFA loan number 2.
Okay, so that's a staff recommendation,
Yes.
not a
I'm sorry,
move
staff
by you.
recommendation.
And the other thing, so you used an interesting word there when you said they are the apparent low bidder. Do you mean anything by that, or did you just, that's just a word you threw out? 'Cause
Yeah, no, I don't,
Are you
it's,
just saying you can, with our eyeballs, we can see that they are the low bidder?
yes,
Okay.
from the 4 quotes we received, there is a,
I just didn't know if there were some back details that we may not,
no, sir,
Have.
no, from the engineer that designed this,
okay.
he has a scoring system that's part of your packet.
No, that's
But
fine.
the bid
It's
is
just
305,
when you say
yes.
they are the apparent, that suggests that maybe there's something more that I'm not seeing here. So they are the low bidder,
Yes, sir.
and staff recommends that we engage with J.S. Herod for this rotary screen installation project, correct?
Yes.
All right, council, do you have any questions for
Yeah,
John? Mr.
have we
Carter.
done business with this company in the past?
No, sir, we haven't. However, the engineering firm has their work as part of the scoring system. So included in that is related experience with similar jobs. They score comparable to other bidders. And they scored equal to or higher in references in form of similar projects. So our engineering firm who helped us with this project reached out to some of the other folks that they worked with.
So the engineering firms that we're working with have done business with them and know,
Yes,
are familiar
yes.
with them.
Yeah, and he reached out for references for them.
Okay, and he got good references all the way.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Okay, if not, are there any objections to making this consent number 10?
None.
All right. D7, North Plant Effluent Station Panel Repair. John?
Yes, sir. This project is to engage with Xylem for the purchase and installation of the flight pump control system at the North Plant Effluent Pump Station. The North Plant has a flight model pump station that handles at the end of their treatment process. And there's essentially a control module that operates the screen and operates the pumps based on water levels in that pump station. So this quote is to replace that control module. Since it is a flight panel and a flight screen and all flight components in the panel, we felt it relative to go with flight, which is now Xylem, which is why you see the quote as listed. The cost for that is $15,495. So staff recommends engaging with Xylem for the purchase and installation of that control module at $15,495.
All right. Council, any questions on this item? All right, any objections to making this consent number 11?
None.
All right, John. Let's go to 8, Water Plant 125 horsepower service pump motor purchase. Go ahead.
This project is engaged with Goforth Williamson for the purchase of a 125 horsepower pump motor. The West Plant staff utilizes a 125 horsepower motor as well as two 75 horsepower motors to deliver treated drinking water to the city's distribution system. This purchase will allow us to be proactive in acquiring the pump motor and having it on hand for future use. We did reach out to two vendors, with Goforth Williamson being the low bid at $12,370. So staff recommends engaging with Goforth Williamson for the purchase of a 125 horsepower pump motor at the cost of $12,370, and it is a budgeted item.
Okay. Any questions for John on this item?
I'll have the same question to go forth, Williamson. What do we know about them?
We've done extensive work with them over the years with the
Okay.
city.
No problems.
Well, for a purchase of a motor, no problems at all.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Any objections to making this consent number 12?
None.
All right. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. All right, Ms. Jennifer, Finance, number 1, fiscal year 2022, budget amendments numbers 140 through 145.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
The first one is a police donation for $500. So we're just going to increase donations and increase their education and training line item. The next item is the North Plant aeration equipment rental. This was council approved at the last meeting. So this is the budget amendment to give them the funds in their budget for equipment rental. And then the last one is the Rise and Shine. These are funds collected or donated for the Rise and Shine program or event, and the amount that was not spent at year end is just needs to be rolled over to 2022.
Wow, those were easy. Any questions? All right, if there are no questions, any objections, make this consent number 13?
None.
All right. Thank you, Jennifer. All right, Tom. F1, preparation of engineering report for stormwater improvements at Stockmar Park.
All right, I'm bringing two items this time, both where we have reached out to an engineer to help us fix one of our long-term stormwater problems. The first is at Stockmar Park at Pine Mountain Go Museum. As you know, the museum sits at the base of the hill and is regularly subject to flooding in the back of the building, into the building. I've asked John Bass with Jordan West, who is a local engineer that we have had a lot of success with, to evaluate the site to see if there is a practical solution to the stormwater issue that we experienced there. He's given us a quote not to exceed 10, which is my spending authority, but I wanted y'all to see this to know what we're doing, because if he's successful, he's going to come back with a proposal to design a fix, and then there will be another proposal to actually execute the fix. So this will be a long process potentially, but will take care of a problem that has existed ever since we built the museum.
Okay. Do you have these on separate? I don't have.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So are there any questions on F1 for Tom? All right. If there are no questions, is there an objection to making this C14?
No.
Okay.
Where's
Mr.
the money,
Carter.
where's the money coming from? Because it says it's not budgeted. You said general fund. We're pulling money out of the general fund.
Yeah, I mean, we'll come back with an adjustment, but it depends on what we actually find as to how we do this going forward. If it becomes part of a big project, it may come out of Douglas Splost.
Okay.
If we have to go that route, I just don't know yet. I don't know. I don't even know if we can fix it, to tell you the truth. That's why we're going to have him look at it.
All right.
I suspect if it was easy to fix, we'd have done it already. So.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any objection to making this consent number 14?
None.
All right. Let's go to F2. Preparation of engineering report for stormwater improvements on Main Street.
All right. When we were in the midst of a conversation about restriping, making Temple one way, doing resurfacing, removing and replacing the parklets in front of Cowboys and Uncorked, we started having a conversation with the owners about the problems that they're having with stormwater. So we're talking about right here right in front of the building. And as you notice when you walk in here, there's a channel drain on the building side of the street, but only in front of the courtroom and PD as you go down. But in front of Uncorked and Cowboys, there's not anything to catch water. And unfortunately, the road is canted so that the water runs from the stairs into the sidewalk. So again, I've asked John if he would come out here and see if there's a fix. And if there is, we want to do that before we refinish and stripe the road, right? So if we have to grade the road and turn the slope down so that the water runs into the stairs, we might have to put, some storm drain infrastructure on that side. So anyway, this is going to be another long-term, multi-process, this to look at it, one to design it, another one to do it. Then we would do the road project. We take out the parklets and put them back. I mean, there's going to be a lot to this.
Okay. Any questions for Tom? All right. If there are no questions, are there any objections to making this consent number 15?
None.
None. Okay. Do we have anybody for public comment? Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over the consent agenda, the items that will be on the consent agenda, and then I'll check again if there are public comments. So let me get through this, and if you hear anything different or you have an objection when I finish, let me know. Consent number 1, the Mill Amphitheater Painting. Consent number 2, athletic uniforms soccer. Consent number 3, athletic uniforms softball, baseball, and basketball. Consent number 4, athletic uniforms football. Consent number 5, engineering services for Cowens Lake Pump Station improvements. Consent number 6, completing the beam data request from Georgia EPF on city's water supply. Consent number 7, engineering services for installing a flow control valve and flow meter at the water plant. Consent number 8, Hickory Level Road water main upgrade. Consent number 9, West Plant Effluent Station bar screen structure. Consent number 10, West Plant new parks and drum screen installation. Consent number 11, North Plant Effluent Station panel repair. Consent number 12, Water Plant 125 horsepower service pump motor purchase. Consent number 13, fiscal year 2022 budget amendments numbers 140 through 145. Consent number 14, preparation of engineering report for stormwater improvements at Stockmar Park. And consent number 15, preparation of engineering report for stormwater improvements on Main Street. Does anybody have any objections to those or hear anything different?
No
Okay.
objection.
Madam Clerk, that will be the consent agenda. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak in public comments? All right, seeing none, I'll close public comments. Mr. Barber, you got anything to add? Mr. Jackson, you have anything to add? All right, anybody from council have anything? Okay, we will be adjourned until tonight at 6 p.m. Actually, we won't be adjourned. I'm gonna adjourn, and we'll come